When they're not covering the sports world, they're talking about the world of professional wrestling. It's Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. Here's Stu Myrick.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling, Stu Myrick here. It is a honor and a privilege to be joined on the phone by a man that I first saw in World Class Championship Wrestling. He had the best hair in the business at that time, and he was a multi-time tag team champion everywhere he worked. NWA, AWA, WCW. He was a multi-time world-class American heavyweight champion, Texas heavyweight champion. One of the best heels ever in the game, and certainly deserving of his soon-to-be induction alongside the Fabulous Freebirds in the WWE Hall of Fame coming up at WrestleMania weekend. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, how are you, sir?
Stu, I'm doing fine after such an introduction. I don't know. I guess I owe you a big dinner and a couple bottles of wine or something. Maybe I'm doing fine though.
I tell you what, I'll be in the Metroplex for WrestleMania weekend. If we meet up, buy me a beer and we'll call it even. How about that?
That'll work. That'll work. If you can look me up, I'll be out there for 3 or 4 days.
I sure will. Let's start with when you got started in the business. You started at the age of 16. And back then, there was no like training schools like they have now with, whether it's the Dudley Boys or Kowalski School or anything like that. They didn't have training schools back then. How did you get to break into the sport of professional wrestling?
Well, I have to step back just a little bit. I can tell you, as a pro, I debuted in November 1st, 1969, which I turned 17 in September 25th. Of that same year. So yeah, it was just a little over just turned 17. So you were close on the number of 16. Either way, pretty darn young, right?
That's right.
Within a few months. But when I was 9 years old, my father and mom had a small apartment complex in Tampa, Florida, in West Tampa, and they rented one time to Joe Scarpa. And, of course, after that, the great Malenko stayed there. John Studd lived there for a while. Later on, Bruiser Brody, Jake the Snake, Moscow. What's his? I can't remember. He was a
Antonino Moscow. No.
And something like that.
Yeah.
It was one of the ex-football players. I can't remember his first name. But so anyway, it wasn't like it was a house full or apartment complex full of wrestlers. These were at different times. Joe Scarpa, Mr. Scarpa, a.k.a. Chief J. Strongbow, stayed with us for several years. And one Saturday morning, to make a long story short, I was out. There was a field next door, and I was out messing around. He says, "Hey, kid," he says, "you want to go down to the Sportatorium and watch the wrestling taping at 106 North Albany there in Tampa, where Eddie Graham did his promotion." And I said, sure. I didn't have anything else to do, so I went down there and watched them tape the wrestling. And this would have been in 1961. I can't even believe that, but yeah, 1961. And then after the wrestling, they had Eddie Graham sponsored a young youth amateur wrestling team. And Joe Scarpa asked me if I'd be interested in joining. Of course, I said yes. He says, well, jump on in there. So I did, and that was my introduction to wrestling. Was 9 years old in 1961. Did my first interview with Gordon Soley right around 1961, 1962 as an amateur. Wrestled with the club until junior high. And then wrestled in junior high. I didn't wrestle that much in high school because, the fact of the matter is my dad passed away. He was a policeman, a captain for the Tampa Police Department when I was 12, so I was the oldest of four. So I had to, in those days, I had to get to work and do what I had to do to do what the oldest son would do, and that's to work. And I had some connections with professional wrestling and got managed to get booked in Phoenix, Arizona for a promoter named Ernie Muhammad and out of Phoenix, and went there. And like you said, there was no school or training. I was half smart, but not really. So, I started as a manager / wrestler, depending on what they needed, making $20 a night, and then went from there, went to Mobile, Alabama for the Fields, and so on and so forth. But that was how I originally got started.
Well, and as you mentioned, you wrestled a lot in Florida, which was one of the really hotbeds, especially in the 70s and 80s. As you said, Eddie Graham worked, running that territory, working the shows out of the Florida Sportatorium.
Yes.
Talk about, and I think I've heard this story before. It may have been Michael Hayes told it on a Legends of Wrestling show or something like that. Talk about how you got connected with Michael P.S. Hayes and your eventual alignment, so to speak, with the Freebirds.
It was in the early 70s. I was in Atlanta wrestling for the then Georgia Championship Wrestling, and Michael Hayes was there, and Tommy Rich, of course, was a big unit there at the time. And I actually met Michael at Tommy Rich's birthday party. Tommy Rich, myself, Michael, a bunch of other guys, and their wives and stuff, and if I remember correctly, a tad bit of moonshine. But Michael and I hit it off right away. As soon as we met, it was just like the old saying, brothers with different mothers type of thing, and became good friends and connected instantly. And then, of course, as years went, this was in the early 70s, so then we ran into each other now and then on the road. Sometimes, when we first met him, we were there together probably for about a year. But, along the road, we'd run into each other and stay in touch and stuff like that. And then in 1980, about 1982, 83, right around in there, I was down in Florida, so was the Birds. And, of course, Terry and Buddy and all them, we all connected instantly. I always, was a Freebird. They kind of referred to me as the undercover Freebird, so to speak. It was just a natural thing. That I don't think there could have been a better pair of four friends that really loved each other and cared for each other and had the same kind of thoughts and the same directional thinking in the business and stuff like that, and like to have a good time at the same time. And David Von Erich was down in Florida. It was 83, and him and I, of course, hit it off, and we're good friends and traveled together. And then he said, "Hey," he says, "I'm going back to Texas, and when you finish up here in Florida," he says, "call me, and I'll get you to come on into Texas." Well, by that time, while he was saying that, I had developed the gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Precious character, because before that I was just the straight Jimmy Garvin, and then went to the gorgeous character. And the story behind that is I was coming back from West Palm Beach with Ernie Ladd, and he says, "Jimmy," he says, "I've known you for a long time, and you've got a good wrestling background, you got good history, but you gotta have a gimmick if you're going to really make it, and you don't have one." And he and I thought about it, and he was exactly right. And then I thought, well, shoot, one thing led to another, and then there was really no valets to speak of. I mean, I think there was a gentleman in Alabama, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head right now, but he had his wife was a valet, but they kind of were like just stayed in Alabama and never really did much. I think he was from England too, if I remember correctly. But anyway, so I did that and called David and said, "Hey, we're heading that way." So away we went, and Michael was there already, and Buddy and Terry was there already, and then so I followed right on in, and again, just being part of that tight group anyway. I had an apartment across the street for 3 or 4 months. I didn't even live in. I lived over there with the Birds. We all lived together. In one apartment all the time. I
can only imagine being a fly on the wall those nights, the four of you in the apartment after a big show.
Oh gosh! I
can only imagine.
You could probably write a book. I'll tell you a quick story. We came home one night from a show, and of course, the business was on fire. The Chris Adams and the gorgeous Jimmy Garvin with the Precious and Sunshine was just starting to kind of cook a little bit. It hadn't really hit. It really got started yet because I worked with David a lot,
right?
As that character. But I'm ready to make a long story short. We came home. Nobody knew where that key was to the apartment. And Terry said, "Well, I got a key." We said, "We're good." And he just backed up and kicked the door with the frame and everything off the hinges, and we were inside. And then we just propped the door up back against the wall, back against the door, and it stayed that way for weeks. I mean, and nobody would ever. I mean, the apartment complex knew who lived there, and they weren't going to come. They weren't going to come in there. It didn't matter if it had a door or not. I don't think there's too many people that would come in there if we just didn't leave the door on at all. But at least it kept the critters out. But yeah, he busted the door right off the hinges, and we propped it back up. And I'm not serious. It stayed that way for a long time. We knew the maintenance guy, and he says, "You want us to fix it?" And we said, "We don't care. It's easy to get in. We just push it aside."
I can only imagine this apartment manager saying, "See what Terry did to this poor defenseless door. What did we do? What would he do to me if I was to approach him?"
We had no rules. We had no law. We didn't. It's not. I'm not being facetious or arrogant or anything, but back in the day, I mean, with the Freebirds and the Von Erichs and Chris Adams and gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, I mean, we pretty much did whatever we wanted to do. I remember one night it was kind of chilly and we had a fireplace in there, but we didn't have no wood. So Buddy Roberts just took a big bump on the coffee table and proceeded to just bust that up. And so we burnt the coffee table, and we thought that was great. We'd got a fire in the fireplace, and got a couple gallons of Jack Daniels and with some cards, and the fireplace started to die down. So then he busted up both end tables off the couches, and we burned every piece of furniture in the house that could burn. It was really nice. It's like being out in the country, just sitting with the fire and a little cocktail and a few other guests,
There you go. I like that.
It was, I think back on it and think, my goodness,
Well, and to kind of go on what you were saying, at that time, World Class was as hot as, and tell me if I'm wrong, World Class was as hot as any promotion in the country. I mean, it was outdrawing the Dallas Cowboys, I know, at the time, which, in Dallas, that's unheard of, but it was, as it was growing at the heights of it, with, like you said, with you and the Freebirds and the Von Erichs and Chris and Gino and all those guys, you guys ruled the roost.
Yeah, it was huge. It was the hottest territory in the world at the time. I mean, we sold out Reunion Arena 7 times in a row, and we'd usually sell out that arena in record time. And I don't think there was a place we wouldn't go too often to a place that wasn't sold out already ahead of time. And it was just that we couldn't do no wrong. And then, of course, we started going. Chris and myself started going up to St. Louis and Kansas City, and up there for Harley Race and that guy that ran the office up there. I can't remember his name now either.
It wasn't Mushnick, was it?
That was after Sam.
Okay, it was after
whoever
Sam.
took it over after Sam. But shame on me for not remembering. But doggone, we're going back for almost 34 years or 35 years, and we used to sell out the Kiel Auditorium or anywhere else we went. It was just a hot time in the city. '84. In Texas, I mean, holy smokes. And then going down into Laredo and Brownsville, as the Freebirds and myself, I mean, we were definitely walking a thin line of, maybe we come back, maybe we won't.
Right. Well, and I've heard these stories, too, about, at that time in the Sportatorium. The Sportatorium in Dallas was very close knit. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room. There wasn't like protected walkways for you guys. So, the TV show would come on and you see yourself, Kevin, and the guys coming down the aisle through the crowd, and the crowd is, grabbing and scratching. And I've heard the stories about how you guys, there were times you really feared for your life just coming to the ring and going back.
Well, you had to fight your way there, and you had to, and you really had to fight your way back because you probably did something you wasn't supposed to do out there. Meaning, we probably did something we weren't supposed to do out there, according to what the fans wanted to see.
Right.
And so coming back was it was not an easy task, and a lot of the places were that way.
Mm-hmm. Talk for a second about, you mentioned a couple of the feuds in World Class. David Von Erich, and probably the most memorable moment of that feud was you losing the match and having to work on his ranch for a day with the valet for a day. Valet for a day. And so you've got these vignettes with Bill Mercer. God love Bill Mercer, by the way. We'll see him down here sometimes doing baseball with the Round Rock Express. But Bill Mercer and David Von Erich sitting there sipping on iced tea or whatever, and you and was that Sunshine or was it Precious by then?
That was Sunshine.
That was Sunshine. And you're hauling bales of hay, and Sunshine's got those Candy's heels that kept coming off, and you're washing the dog and everything.
That was a classic.
How many did y'all have to do, like multiple takes of those vignettes, or was that just one take and you're good?
We sure didn't. It was that tight. Michael Hayes, contributed immensely, in that area as far as those vignettes went. And of course, I had my opinions, which I would always let be known as to what I thought. But Michael and I worked great together that most of the time we was thinking the same thing anyway about what should happen. But it was so tight in the meaning that we all were on the same page and we knew what we wanted to see as a finished product, and we didn't have to rehearse or all that was ad lib. The scenes were verbally talked about, but then once we would do a verbal walkthrough, standing around do a verbal walkthrough, like, okay, the limo is going to pull up, and David's going to open the door, and then the rest of it, ad lib. And then, the next scene we'd talk about, David's going to be sitting in the chair and Sunshine and I are going to be washing this nasty dog, and the skeet shooting thing. I came up with the idea with the shotgun because it was me out there in the field anyway.
Right.
And I told David, I said, Dave, look, no, seriously, it's that wasn't a dummy round or just that was a full load of buckshot. I said, don't mess around. Make sure that you aim high enough above my head that you don't shoot me, because we weren't playing with any Hollywood guns. That was a live round, and we knocked it right off, and the bale of hay thing. I mean, when Dave pulled up to the truck, we had discussed going to throw it in and him pulling off, and which I did like we discussed, and then an ad lib part of it was where when I grabbed the hay and started walking, and Sunshine started walking behind me, and I turned around and told her, I said, hey, get a bale. I mean, that was all off the cuff, ad-libbed verbiage, dialogue, and we would put those things together, and that was the very first one that we did, and it was light years ahead of its time. When you look back on it, nobody was doing that kind of stuff.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, and I mean nobody, and there was no other valets in the country to speak of. I mean, with all due respect to the gentleman down in Alabama with his wife, Adrian
Street, exotic like Adrian Street, right?
Yes, him and his wife. I got to give credit where credit's due, but they just never expanded, to the degree that they probably could have. But it just that gorgeous Jimmy Garvin character with the valet was. I was very proud to be a part of that and have a chance to portray that character.
Right. Well, and to speak to your point, you had two valets at one time with Sunshine, and then you brought Precious, your wife, in as I guess Sunshine's valet, and then it ended up being the feud with Sunshine and Precious. Sunshine sides with Chris Adams, and then of course you two had great battles for the American Heavyweight title. It was such a magical time. Let's shift gears to Jim Crockett Promotions. You came in as a heel, but then had that moment with Ron Garvin, who was billed as your brother, but he was correct me if I'm wrong. He was really your stepfather. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was. He had married my mom. Years and years.
So you come in to help him become babyface. Had some incredible feuds, including a huge world title push with Ric Flair in '87. I remember the matches, leading up to that Great American Bash, and talk for a second about how much fun it was to be in that world title picture and working with Ric Flair, who is from all accounts is a consummate professional, always has been. Yeah,
and you're exactly right. That never hit me that way because, I knew Flair was, I knew of his status and I knew, of his record and I knew of his, type of operation, the way he was. And, you can't, take nothing away from him for sure. But on the same token, I knew mine as well. I had already, burnt Texas to the ground more, so to speak.
Right.
And then went to AWA and did the same thing for Vern Gagne with Rick Martel in world title matches all over the place and had wonderful matches with him. So we were on the same level. I didn't think. It was cool. It was okay. I knew I knew what I had to do and I did what I had to do. I wasn't like overwhelmed. I wasn't like I wasn't like going like, oh God, I get to wrestle Ric Flair. I could care less.
Right, and that's not what and I apologize. That's not what I meant. I meant just, being in that world title picture, being recognized as someone of that level to where, you had one of the top storylines in Crockett, like you said, after all the great success in world class in AWA.
Then before that, I did a 1 hour Broadway with Harley Race at Al Lopez Field in Tampa for the world title.
Right. This was
years and years ago. So I had been to that rodeo before.
Well, and it was good to see it, on a more national stage, being that 2 hour show every Saturday on TBS. And I enjoyed working with Wahoo a lot more than I enjoyed working. I thought Wahoo and I did just incredible, entertaining stuff. And of course now I got to take that back a little bit because remember when Flair and I had the match where he I lost it and he had Precious for the evening or something. Correct.
And then Ronnie came to the door as Miss Atlanta Lively. You remember that.
I do vividly. I'm not sure I ever want to remember Ron Garvin in drag, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It was a great story though.
Yeah, and Flair gargling and spitting in the trash can and all that kind of. J.J. Dillon was there. My gosh, that was some sheer entertainment right there. Is all I gotta say.
It was. It really was. We're talking to gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, who will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame on April 2nd, alongside his Freebird brother, Michael P.S. Hayes. Talk for a bit about, when Jim Crockett was taken over by Ted Turner, became WCW, and you were there in the early days, and, they decided to go ahead and put you and Michael together as the Freebirds. You had incredible tag title runs in those years, beating up the Midnight Express and the Steiner brothers, and just talk about that transition where it went from the kind of the old school Jim Crockett to WCW.
Well, what happened there was when Jim Crockett sold to WCW, Turner down there, I wasn't involved or included in the process and let me back up just a little bit more. Just a few months prior to that, or right after our run was kind of coming to an end, Patty, my wife, who was precious at the time, had been traveling on the road with me for 5 years, and we had two young daughters. We had 2 young daughters at the time, and we traveled and had a nanny, and of course took care of us and the kids. But Patty had told me in Norfolk, Virginia one night, she says, "I'm pretty much done. I'm going home." And I said, "Well, I think I will too. We'll just kill off the characters and in our own way, and we'll just take some time off." It just so happened that coincided with the fact that when we were thinking that we were going to be involved with the Turner organization, they had different thoughts, and which was okay with me. I think what happened was I didn't purposely portray, but I guess they sensed that I really could care less, and I was getting close to my retirement goal anyway, which just briefly let me go through that with you for a second so it makes sense. And that is that when I turned pro back in the day in '69, at 17, I started flying when I was 19. Sam Maneker, an old-time promoter out in that area, eventually I think he moved to El Paso, but he took me to a town in his airplane. He was a pilot, and I fell in love with aviation. And I started flying back then when I was 19. Well, when I was 26, I said, well, when I turn 40, I'm going to retire, and I'm going to fly airplanes and play golf. Well, now let's go fast forward, because I'm always a planner. I always stuck to my plans and planned everything. But so now this would have been like 88 to around 88 when that transition between Crockett and Turner, 87, 88 era. I don't know if you know the dates exactly, but it was right around there. Could have been around 87.
I believe it's like 87, 88. I think you're right.
Right in there. So we took a year off, went to St. Thomas, messed around, enjoyed a year off, and I didn't have any real plans. Michael Hayes called me and said, "Hey," he says, "how would you like to come to Turner's organization, WCW, and we'll crank up the Freebird gimmick again?" And I said, "That sounds great." It'd be because Terry Gordy was still around. Buddy was still around a little bit, but his health wasn't doing so good. He was kind of retired, but excuse me, Gordy was still very active, going back and forth between Japan and States. So so I said yes, and so we kind of put it together and then presented it to Turner, and they said that sounds good. And even Patty was a valet for us for a very, very, very short time, and then she went back home because she was done. And then Michael and myself and Terry Gordy did the Freebird thing for Turner. Well, then Terry was more involved in Japan more and more and more, and then it ended up being just Michael and I. Mm-hmm. And that's when we developed, the greatest rock and roll band in the world and every other thing that we felt like doing, because we could just do whatever we wanted to do anyway. Plus, we was going to do whatever we wanted to do anyway, and they knew that too. So, that's how that happened. And then I said I was going to retire on my 40th birthday. Bill Watts was doing the booking for Turner, and September 25th, when I turned 40, I had my last match with them, and they bought my contract out. I was under contract for another year, and it was mutual to the extent that I really didn't want to be involved anymore, because I said I was going to retire at 40, and I meant it. And I guess it kind of showed that in maybe my work, that I really could care less. I didn't have the interest to bleed my life away for them. Mm-hmm. So, they bought my contract out, and that was it. That was in 1992, September 92.
Right.
And then I went and had a flight instruction job. I flight instructed for a while. Then I went and flew for U.S. Air Express 5 years, and then I went to Midway Airlines. I flew for them until they went bankrupt again, and I got furloughed. Then I got on with NetJets in 2000. 2001.
That's amazing, and it's such credit to you to know that you had a goal. You had a goal in the professional wrestling, and then afterwards, and where we see a lot of guys that wrestle, as long as you have, and they keep going, and they don't have a way to get out and be able to transition, and you see that in professional sports throughout, whether it's in the NFL or NBA. So credit to you for having that foresight, for that. You mentioned about now you're a pilot. Talk for a second about your job with NetJets. Do you have any of these moments where you're coming on the plane and somebody recognizes you as gorgeous Jimmy Garvin?
No, never happens. I think I was in a limousine one time going to work to my plane, and the driver just says, "Man," he says, "it just seems like I know you," or something like that, because when one thing led to another, and then my first officer said, "Well, you know who that is, don't you?" And he goes, "No." The driver said, "No, but I just feel like I know him." And then my first officer told him, and of course, he almost wrecked. But no, you don't. Yeah, we never. I've never really, because I look so different. I mean, we're talking so many years ago, and they just wouldn't even, they wouldn't even enter their mind that I was a captain for the number one largest private carrier in the world. The elite of the elite is our clientele.
Wow. Talking to gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. So let's fast forward to April 2nd in the American Airlines Center there in Dallas.
Yes.
The WWE Hall of Fame. You'll be there with Michael P.S. Hayes and Sting and The Godfather, and they announced Jackie going in. And I've got to ask this because you know better than anybody. Michael P.S. Hayes is one for fashion. So between him and Charles Wright going in as The Godfather, over under a number of colors we're going to see between the two of them on their clothes.
I would say you'd probably see every color that there is in the world between the two of them. Now,
are you going to join in on the fashion show there?
No, I'm sorry. I'm actually gonna wear a very nice designer tuxedo, and that's gonna be what I'm gonna do.
Let me ask you this: when did you find out that you were going in the Hall of Fame, and how?
Michael mentioned it to me that there was some rumors going around, or some talk going around about us being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and so I guess he's the one that kind of had that feeling or leaked it to me. He really didn't know until later on himself, because he's been thinking for years that the Atlanta show, when they did that show, that WrestleMania down there, that might be a good spot for the Birds to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Of course, that wasn't the case, and I don't, it is what it is, and Vince has got it all figured out, no doubt. I take nothing at all away from him. Very talented and intelligent individual. But yeah, Michael mentioned to me. I found out because I think Michael called me up and said, "Hey, we're in."
Wow, that's
it just hasn't been announced yet. And then they announced it about a month ago on Monday Night Raw, officially, I think. Right,
and I will tell you, and I know it's been one of these things where it's been kind of the, for lack of a better term, and forgive the pun, the Susan Lucci of the WWE Hall of Fame. We keep waiting, and I know a lot of us, especially a lot of us world class fans, we've been clamoring ever since they put the Von Erichs in, and Michael was kind enough to induct Kevin and the rest of the Von Erichs. It has been a clamor. It's like it's kind of like you can't have good without the bad, so you can't do the Von Erichs without the Freebirds, and so it's been kind of this yearly clamor, and so to finally see that happen, and to see at the announcement that went on Monday Night Raw, I think I speak for every world-class fan and every wrestling fan that has ever seen you and the Freebirds. I think it is way overdue, incredibly deserved. Let me ask you this: do you follow the product much now, whether it's WWE or TNA or Ring of Honor or anything like that?
I don't follow it a lot. I still will watch it when I get the opportunity, just to see what's going on, and watch it more as a creative, kind of see the creativity that's going on and how it's changed in so many ways. And there's such great talent working for WWE.
Right.
There's some really, really admirable gentlemen that are sacrificing their life for the art of sports entertainment and wrestling, and I appreciate that. I can't help but appreciate that and the talent that I see, but I don't really follow it.
Right.
Good enough to tell you what happened last week.
Understandable. Talk for a second about, you mentioned creative, and of course, Michael Hayes is a huge force behind the creative in WWE. You know firsthand how creative he is. Talk about how proud you are of his success behind the scenes.
Well, I'm very proud of him. I don't know, I can't think of words to describe how proud I am of him. I'm proud of the fact that Vince and his team, of course, recognized, and it wouldn't be hard to do, but recognized how talented Michael was, and he got the opportunity. They threw him the ball, and I knew before they even threw the ball that if they threw it to him, he was, one, going to catch it, and two, they was never going to catch him after he got it in his hands. So he didn't let me down on that, and he's never let me down. He's a talented, creative individual. In fact, I'm leaving tomorrow morning and flying down to Atlanta to see him and spend the night with him, and we're going to just enjoy each other's company for a couple of days, and then I'm coming back home here to Charlotte after that. But yeah, Michael is wrestling and Michael are the same thing.
Yeah.
He's just a genius, is what he is. And Pat Patterson was there before, and Pat still comes.
Yes.
But as he's getting older and stuff, and I think that Michael stepped in to where Pat was, as far as the intricate thoughts and planning and thinking of what would be the best thing and how do we need to do it. And if anybody can do it, nobody can do it better than Michael.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Before I let you go, I have to ask, because you said you do watch it on occasion. Is there a current star today that you see a younger version of you?
No.
Because you're one of a kind.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think so, because the character, he could talk, he could work. I thought I could work a little bit. I could have a pretty good match. I don't put myself over by no means. I wouldn't dare do that, but I did work hard and try to portray and entertain the people and give them their money's worth. And I'm totally blessed, and that'll probably be the opening of my speech at WrestleMania, is the fact that how blessed I am to have experienced 23 years of that. But and not only that, I've been with Patty, my wife, for 47 years. She's the only girl that's ever been in my, the love of my life, So that's a rarity to have, one wife in our business. Usually the number's a little higher, but
that's true.
And I've been blessed with healthy children, and then my flying career is a whole nother. I have 23 years in the aviation industry, as a captain. So what kind of storybook? The wrestling career was a storybook in itself, and it was an accomplishment that I feel that I was glad to be a part of, and fortunate and blessed to still be alive, and then to get into the flying end of it, and fly the greatest equipment, and see the curvature of the earth at 45,000 feet, so to speak, and just it's just what really.
Well, I will happily put you over as a 11, 12-year-old boy. I tuned in every weekend just so I could see you get your butt kicked by the likes of David Von Erich. But now, in 2016, as I said, on behalf of every fan that has ever watched Florida wrestling, world-class wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, it is a true honor and a privilege to talk to you, to interview you, to learn a little more about you. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, thank you so much for what you have done for this business. Congratulations on being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. As I said, I hope to be up there that weekend, and I hope I get to run into you and shake your hand and maybe even share a beer or something, and maybe hear a few more stories.
Well, hunt me down. I can't tell you. You'll be able to find out on your own where I'm at and where I'm staying. I don't dare say that over the. No,
we don't want to do that, but yeah.
For now, I don't want to get too. He would get too excited here, but you can find me, and I do wish you would, because I'm not going to be able to find you if you don't find me.
I will make it a point to find you. I will stay in touch. Again, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. All the best to you and Patty on a wonderful long marriage, and you on your long career. Thank you so much. Safe travels, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you too, Stu, and thank you all the wrestling fans out there that supported me over the years. I mean, I couldn't have done it without them. And you're in Austin, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's one of my favorite cities down there. I love Austin, love going down there. I fly in and out of Signature at Austin quite a bit, all down through there. And it's a great city. Love going there. And Stu, thanks for everything, and it was my pleasure.
Well, sir, and if next time you're back in Austin, if you're here for longer than a day or two, let me know. I will certainly take you out to dinner.
All right, my brother.
All right. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My thanks to gorgeous Jimmy Garvin for joining me on the phone for that great interview. As I mentioned, one of the best heels in the business throughout his days in world class, in Jim Crockett Promotions, the NWA, and of course in WCW. But he was even good as a face. So just a consummate professional, and such a treat to talk to him and hear some of the stories from his days at the Sportatorium and elsewhere. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on Stitcher. If you do subscribe to us, especially on iTunes, let us know you're listening. Write us a review. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find us on SoundCloud. You can also find us on Facebook at Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. You can follow us on Twitter at SGTW ATX. And, of course, follow me, Stu Myrick, at Stu Myrick, STEWMYRICK. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Stu Myrick. We will see you at the matches.